Ancienter, Medea of Corinth. In the cradle of civilization, when myths blended with reality, one story haunted the ancient Greeks for centuries: the tale of Medea. Medea wasn't a monster at first. She was a sorceress, a woman of power and intelligence who fell in love with the hero Jason. Yes, the Jason of the Argonauts. When he set out to steal the legendary Golden Fleece, it was Medea who helped him, betraying her own family, even murdering her brother to ensure Jason's escape. Together they fled to Greece, married, and had 2 sons. But years later, when Jason abandoned her to marry another woman, Medea's heartbreak transformed into a kind of divine rage. According to the ancient play by Euripides, Medea plotted revenge so terrible it would make history shudder. She poisoned Jason's new bride, and then turned on her own children. In one of the most horrifying acts in classical mythology, Medea killed both of her sons, believing that making Jason suffer eternal grief was worth the price. Whether or not she truly existed doesn't matter, because to the ancient Greeks she did. Medea became a symbol of betrayal, fury, and the dark side of love itself, proof that even a mother's heart could become the stage for unimaginable cruelty. Middle Ages, Gilles de Rais. Fast forward nearly 2,000 years, France, 15th century. A nation torn apart by war, famine, and faith, and one nobleman who would go down in history as both a hero and a monster: Gilles de Rais. He was a decorated knight, one of Joan of Arc's commanders, celebrated for his courage on the battlefield. But after the war ended, something inside him twisted. At his grand castles in Brittany, peasants began noticing children disappearing, mostly boys from poor families, lured with promises of food or work. Behind the walls of de Rais' fortress, they were tortured and killed in acts so depraved that even his confessors refused to write down the details. When finally arrested in 1440, witnesses described horrific rituals, strange prayers, and experiments that de Rais claimed would summon the philosopher's stone. But the truth was simpler and far darker. He did it for pleasure. He confessed to the deaths of at least 80 children, though historians believe it could have been more than 200. A hero of France turned into one of Europe's first documented serial killers. He was hanged and burned, his ashes scattered, his castles abandoned. To this day, his story stands as a reminder that evil can hide behind titles, wealth, and glory. 18th century, Elizabeth Brownrigg. London, 1767. The city streets overflowed with orphans and unwanted children. Poorhouses were packed, and apprenticeships were often the only escape from starvation. It was in this setting that a woman named Elizabeth Brownrigg opened her home to young girls, promising them training and care. But what went on behind her doors became one of the most shocking cases in Georgian England. Brownrigg was a midwife respected in her parish. Yet in secret she beat, starved, and chained the girls she took in. One apprentice, Mary Clifford, was found dead, covered in bruises and whip marks. Another, only 15, escaped and told authorities the unimaginable truth. When police broke into Brownrigg's home, they discovered iron chains bolted to the cellar walls, and the bodies of girls who hadn't survived. Her cruelty was so severe that newspapers of the time called her the monster of Fetter Lane. She was tried, convicted, and hanged at Tyburn before a furious crowd that demanded justice. Her crimes led to public outrage, and in time to new child welfare laws that would protect orphans from exploitation. Brownrigg's name became a byword for evil, whispered for decades whenever a child vanished in London. 19th century, Amelia Dyer. By the Victorian era, London's darkness had taken a new form: poverty and shame. In a society obsessed with respectability, single mothers often had nowhere to go. That's where Amelia Dyer came in. She posed as a kind-hearted nurse, taking in unwanted babies for a small fee, promising to find them good homes. But Amelia had no intention of caring for them. Instead, she strangled the infants with white tape, disposed of their bodies in rivers, and pocketed the money. For nearly 20 years she operated freely, moving from town to town, using fake names whenever suspicions grew. In 1896, a package floating in the Thames exposed her horror: a baby's body wrapped in paper with her address on it. Police raided her house and found baby clothes, ledgers, and adoption letters, evidence linking her to hundreds of deaths. Amelia Dyer is believed to have killed more than 400 infants, making her one of the deadliest female serial killers in history. She showed no emotion at her execution, saying only, "I have nothing to say." Her crimes shocked Britain, leading to the first major reforms in adoption and child protection laws. Early 20th century, Albert Fish. America, 1920s. The Great Depression was looming, families were starving, and in the middle of it all, a gray-haired man named Albert Fish was walking among them. He looked harmless, even gentle, a quiet, eccentric old man. But beneath that calm face was one of the darkest minds in history. Fish preyed on children across several states, luring them with promises of food or odd jobs. He believed he was on a mission from God. His delusions were so deep that he took pleasure in pain, his own and others. When 10-year-old Grace Budd disappeared in 1928, her parents had no idea the man who'd offered her a party invitation was her killer. 6 years later, they received a letter that in it, Fish described every detail of her murder, so disturbing that parts were never released to the public. The letter led detectives straight to his door. When police arrested him, Fish seemed calm, even proud that at trial, he admitted to more than 100 murders, though most couldn't be proven that he was executed in 1936. Witnesses say he didn't scream when the current hit him. He smiled. Albert Fish remains one of America's most nightmarish figures, the real-life bogeyman of the 20th century. Late 20th century, Mary Bell. 1968, Newcastle, England. Police found the body of a 4-year-old boy in an abandoned house, strangled, his body marked with an M. A week later, another child was found the same way. The killer wasn't a man, or even a teenager. It was an 11-year-old girl, Mary Bell. Mary had grown up in chaos. Her mother was abusive, her home filled with violence. Experts later said she'd never known empathy, only fear and control. When questioned, she described the murders coldly, without remorse. At trial, she became a symbol of innocence corrupted, a child who had become the thing every parent fears most. Sentenced to detention until adulthood, Mary Bell was released at age 23 with a new identity. Today she lives under legal protection, her whereabouts unknown. Her story remains one of the most disturbing in modern criminal history, a reminder that evil can sometimes wear the face of a child. From the mythic ages to the modern world, the faces of evil have changed, but the horror remains the same. Every story we've seen today, from Medea to Garavito, is proof that darkness is not confined by time, class, or reason. It's been here since the beginning, and it still walks among us. If you want to explore more stories like this, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, which time period's killer disturbed you the most?